Christian, welcome to Startup Grind.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Great to see you. I'm in Hong Kong and you are in Sweden, but we met here in Hong Kong in '99.
Yeah, it's way back. Yeah, that was many years ago. But we have met in Sweden afterwards. But It is kind of weird. But it's a long story.
Before we begin today's topic, maybe can you sort of briefly introduce yourself, what you do and your history, and also what you do at the 61 Digital Agency?
My background is that I've been a designer and creative director for more or less my entire career. And then about 10 years ago, I started the 61st Group, which consists of a couple of different companies, but the major one is a venture studio where we design and develop early stage companies, products and services. We are 110 employees in 4 different countries. We're based in Canada, Poland, Ukraine. So that's and I'm the CEO now. I'm also really heavily involved in the creative work. So that's a short story about me and the company.
But that's an impressive footprint that you have.
Thank you.
So today's event has kind of 2 titles. One is the Rapid Prototyping with AI, and the other one is how AI saved a children's card game, which is kind of where you and I got started talking, I guess now 2 months ago about this. So this card game, maybe can you sort of tell us about the final product, what it is you have developed, and then we'll look into how it came to be.
Yeah. So I've created a card game, a physical card game, which kids can play. And the whole basic idea is to be one part fun game. That's just a fun game to play, but also at the same time learn the basic foundation of the mathematical formulas, the division and the multiplication, etc. So you sort of trick kids into playing and at the same time learn the game. And it's built around a really sort of edgy kind of illustrative style that makes the kids kind of they want to play it. They choose their sort of favorite house, because you can choose houses which you can play. You can play agents, ninjas, cool princesses, fancy creatures and stuff like that. Candy, which is my daughter's favorite. Yeah, so that's basically it.
Yeah, so so in a way, you by using the game and by competing, you have to use math.
Yes, exactly. I mean we come back to that in the history part from this, but I mean most games, especially card games, are math. It's just that I take it a little bit further to just use the basic math functions.
Cool. And how did you come about the idea to this game?
So I have 3 kids here in Sweden, and I felt that in general the school here didn't really work a lot with counting in your mind, so to say. You use calculator, you use methods, which is fine, but I sort of lacked the way when I grew up that we actually made kind of a competition of who could count the fastest and so on. I'm just going to point out personally, I always ended up last, so I'm not a good advocate for this, but my kids are actually pretty good at math. But I ended up playing a card game called Magic the Gathering with my son. We made but when we sat there, I was so impressed that he actually could do all the sort of mathematical calculations that the game has at such a young age. I started thinking maybe you could actually do this as a part pedagogical learning sort of experience, but at the same time a fun experience. So that's where it started, and then it grew over the years. I actually hooked up with a friend of mine who's an illustrator, and we started doing the conceptual sort of artwork, and sadly she passed away, and then this project got put in a storage, I would say, for many years. So the story is both happy but also really sad in a way. So that's how it came about. And I'm an avid board game player and a card game player. So of course I have the background. I like it. And I want to do good, but at the same time I don't want to sacrifice the fun part. I didn't want to end it up as a tool just in the schools, because then the kids not going to use it voluntarily.
Yeah. So I know the sad part of the story, but how did AI save the game?
Yeah, so I mean, I put this project has been in works for 10 years, and I would say the last 4 years going back, she passed away sadly, and we didn't get anywhere with it. It's a hobby project. I'm going to point out this has nothing to do with the agency part, but and when she passed away, I sort of lost all energy, lost all interest, because this was her and my sort of project together. But then AI showed up, and I'm going to point out I did want to do it, especially for her. I mean, I wanted to finish our project. Just didn't want to join with any other illustrator, because we had a specific style, and I felt like a little bit like cheating on her by going to another illustrator. It felt wrong. But then AI came. I started, meddling around a little bit. I did some characters early on in DALL-E. I wasn't really pleased, but I thought, well, maybe this can actually happen a couple of years ahead. But then the technology went so far ahead when it comes to graphical AI things that I started doing original art in Midjourney, and well, now the game is actually printed out. So I ended up using the style my friend and I came up and mimic that style in Midjourney. So Midjourney could actually produce styles that she couldn't anymore.
So therefore, the spirit of the game was implemented into AI, and now you can produce all the different characters that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
No, exactly.
So it's a very hands-on experience or hands-on example of a game produced thanks to AI with Midjourney. But if you take that sort of project that you've now done, if you start from scratch today, how much time would AI save you from a production perspective?
I would say it saves so much. I mean, it's really hard to say, but I would say it's the character design I've done today, in combination with rule copy. I mean, the copywriting for the rules, and of course playtesting, because I use you to sort of test the game and see how it works when a specific type of number of cards, etc. And I also get ChatGPT to help me write the rules. I input the rules, but it comes back in a much more truncated form. But I mean, it's hundreds of hours. And I want to point out that if I were to do this card game in a commercial manner, that I take in money or I invest my own money, I wouldn't do it. That's the problem. So I found my friend who had the same passion for kids and the math. But for that to happen, that's 1 in a million, I would say. So to do this in a commercial way, it wouldn't have been done.
And AI made it possible. Now, 61 Digital Agency and your sort of day work when you work. So how do you use AI for rapid prototyping at your company?
So the art team, which of course is close to heart for me, I would say that we do a lot of research. We test things, everything from branding to some UI concepts. We create product photography. We produce every sort of imagery material. Because one of the things, if you have been in an agency world, one of the biggest problems is that you always ask the client for, well, can you send me over all your image material? Because the more image material we have, the better the end result is going to be. And that's always a problem. I don't know really why, but it's usually really poorly stored at the companies. They don't know really where they are. And well, some is on SharePoint, some is in some hard drive somewhere. Oh, the photographer, you need to email the photographer. And the photographer. It's so many problems. And that actually is a huge problem for the project to proceed. So I would say today we generate every type of imagery except for the one which we purchase from a stock photo. We still purchase some stock photos because they are specific. I mean, it's a two-part process, I would say. So I mean, you can't generate everything with AI, but most of it you can. And I mean, it's AI is another tool in our toolbox, which we add on top of other research tools. But then we use chat to write specifications. We do, I mean, we use it as a sounding board for most of our UI UX research. But then, I mean, if we go to the developers, which is, I mean, I'm not that familiar with, but I know they use a lot of ChatGPT as well to test code, for example. I mean, our testing process has been completely different now. We have another layer before we actually go to our testers. So it's a huge lifesaver. And I know you're going to ask me how much time.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a difficult question to answer. I would say that it's definitely 2-digit percent-wise. I mean, it could be even 30-40%. It's really hard to say, but it feels in general that all the projects are both more rapid moving, but it's also a higher sort of end product in every stage. So you feel that the quality is better. So, and it's always difficult then to measure the sort of exact time savings, but definitely time savers.
And if you look back at, before we talk about sort of the risks of using it, how you handle that, if you look back 2 years back and compare today, is it a night and day situation?
I would say it is. I mean, we have worked with machine learning stuff before. We've done some projects even 3-4 years back, but it's different from where we use it as a backend technology to use it ourselves as tools. And I would say 2 years back, it is night and day, especially for the creative part, I would say.
Yeah. And as you describe, I mean, you're a fair-sized company, so you can imagine the amount of time, etc. Now, are there any risks of using AI in prototyping that you have found, or what should startups and people look out for?
Yeah, so it's actually the same problem as with doing research, for example, on the same page. Say, for example, that you follow some people on Dribble, for example. You really like what they do, or Behance or something, and you really like them, and you keep coming back to that. Well, you're going to be in that track. And AI sort of sometimes feel that it always comes back in a sort of really broad but still same track. So I think the problem or the risk is using only AI. We try to always mix up. We use the old type of tools or techniques, but we mix it in with AI. But I think a risk could be that you get a little bit sort of a fat cat syndrome, that I mean, let's just go with AI. Let AI write everything. No, that's not the way to use it. You should use it as a helper or a third member of the team. If you look at ChatGPT, for example, but not the only sole member.
Yeah, so
I think the smaller agencies probably has a tendency to fall into that trap easier. We are bigger. We can sort of build in this in our strategy. The smaller ones, it's so easy to just generate everything and not create anything yourself. And then it's going to end up having no sort of creative touch at all from you.
Yeah.
It's just an AI touch.
Yeah. So you need to shake things up every so often so that the team doesn't lose that unplugged internet. We're going to go back to crayons. Now, one thing that often been discussed, and rightfully so, and I know you're going to mention how the different providers get their material, but are you concerned, or should people be concerned about copyright?
Yeah, that is it's a really good question, and something that I've been kind of struggling with from day one. And I'm not on either side, so to say, because I kind of like both sides' arguments. There are problems, definitely. It's going to be solved on a really top level, I think. So if you compare, for example, Adobe, which has Firefly, which they have now implemented commercially in Photoshop, they made a stand and said, well, we don't use any non-copyrighted material that we don't own the rights to. So they use their, if I'm not wrong here, they use their stock photo database and open source documents only. So you know that the stuff that is produced is clean, so to say, from a legal point of view. And then you can compare it to Midjourney, which is the other way around. They use everything. Anything they can get a hold of, they're going to use more or less. I mean, the quality-wise, I would say Midjourney is so way ahead when it comes to generating stuff. Well, I'm not going to say that I have the solution, but I have ended up sort of in a way that I feel that the end product, at the end, sort of the thing that you end up with, that's where you should actually see it from a copyright perspective, not how it gets generated. Because I mean, to be honest, as a designer, I've spent my entire life looking at other people's work, thinking, I can do that better, I can do that otherwise, or I love it, I wish I could be that good, and try to mimic it. So it's part of the process, but it's a huge difference to be inspired compared to copying. So for example, if I do an exact copy of Mona Lisa, well, that's a copyright infringement. But if I do a Banksy version of Mona Lisa, if Banksy does it, not me, then it's something new. Then he created something from, inspired from something and created something new. And I tried to end there, but I'm not done with this question personally.
No, I guess also technology will help us where eventually people get compensated and paid for the small snippet of that art used within an AI and sort of. I mean, technically, it doesn't feel too complicated if you at least the same way as when you watch a YouTube video, etc., etc.
No,
you
exactly.
you get compensated for this and that, etc., or music. Now,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, in the introduction, you spoke about Midjourney, which you used for the children's game, and you also mentioned Firefly. What other tools do you use, and what do you recommend to other people to use?
Yeah, so I mean, I've tried tons of different tools. I'm going to say since it's been a sort of a gold rush creating tools on top of each other, I sort of ended up going back to the sort of core starters. And so I use ChatGPT, of course, a lot for lots of different stuff. Then I use Midjourney. I use Adobe as well. So I do the original art in Midjourney, and then I try to sort of change stuff which I need, so small details. That Photoshop is really good at that with the Firefly engine. And then I use Play HT, which is a text to speech AI that is really good as well. It can actually, one of the few that actually can make Swedish. I've done some storytelling with that, dabbling around. But yeah, that's about it. I would say those are the best ones.
And we're going to come back. Yeah, we're going to come back to other sources, but you in the email after this, we're going to send out and we're going to include a short list of the tools. Now, as you mentioned, at your company, you both do design, but you also do sort of the coding. So what does the developers use, and what do they find useful?
Oh, that's a hard one since I'm not a developer myself. But I mean, from what I know, it's still ChatGPT they use a lot, and then they have some built-in tools which I'm not really familiar with, to be honest. I know they use ChatGPT a lot, but again, it's always a combination, so they don't end up just relying on that, because you can't rely 100% on AI as you can't rely on Google, for example. You have to sort of get the solution from several sources and of course test yourself. So
and with products like, or sites like Stack Overflow also providing AI which helps coders code better and so on. Now, what do you foresee the future looks like for companies such as yourself when it comes to AI?
I mean, this is going to be recorded, right? I'm going to end up in 5 years time regretting what I say, but I mean,
oh no,
I don't think it's going to be that dramatic as people sort of point out. I think it's going to feel in 5 to 10 years time, this is going to feel the same way when Photoshop came and everyone said, oh, there's not going to be people doing photo adjustments or illustrators and stuff like that. This product, anyone can do design now. Well, that's not the case. I mean, if you look today, it's just a tool in the toolbox. So I think it's going to be much, much better. You can probably cut a lot of the start of a project down and time-wise and man hours. But I think it's going to be another tool.
And how do you
all around?
Yeah. So all of these tools, and as you said, when Word came and with Excel came and so on, and how do you introduce AI in a safe way at a company?
I mean, if you look at traditional companies, I would say bring in someone who's really good at, for example, I mean, if you take ChatGPT, I mean, everyone probably has heard about it. Most of them can probably know approximately what it can do, but it can do so much more. So I would say bring in someone who actually knows a lot of the tools, especially then ChatGPT, and just show them that in their specific industry or in their specific sort of line of work, you can use it. And of course, also from a management point of view, tell them that, yeah, so let us embrace this. This is not it's not an enemy. We're not going to replace any of you. This is a tool for each and every one of you to make your job even better, because that's how it is. It's like to have a sort of an assistant always there, which you can sound sort of ideas and help with spell checking and stuff like that. It's more than spell checking, of course, but it's so broad what it can do. So I would say, yeah, bring in an expert, sort of inspirational, but also from a management perspective, as I said, to say that we embrace this. This is good.
Yeah, and as you said, it is not only a spell checker, but it does do spell check pretty good. So
yeah, exactly. I mean,
but when AI comes, and we have, of course, the next generation. So how and when should we introduce AI for the next generation of entrepreneurs?
I think it's going to be introduced in a very young age, to be honest. It's like programming. I mean, everything works, it goes really rapidly now when it comes to development, and we haven't really ended up being able to bring in programming, STEM in the schools early on, I would say. But I think everything is going to pile up for the kids. They're going to be using this like anything else. It's going to be totally natural for them, I would say. So I mean, there's always a backside of everything, but I think early on, I mean, I teach my kids to use Jet, but in the correct manner, because we have a huge problem here in Sweden with copying. I mean, they let you write essays and stuff like that. That's the wrong way to use it. I mean, so you need to sort of understand that you still have to learn stuff, but you can use it as a teacher. And my kids do that. I mean, you can actually ask ChatGPT, be an expert in this subject, in this age level, in this specific sub section, and ask me questions that you correct. So instead of having me that knows nothing about, sadly, about the Roman Empire, they can have an expert in it that actually answers them back. That, oh, sorry, yeah, you got it right, but you forgot this. That's how you should use it. Not, end up, well, give me the right answers. That's the wrong approach, I would say.
Yeah, that's.
I think in a responsible way, I think you can introduce it really early.
Yeah, I think, as you said, the key is responsible, but also knowing that it's possible, because that you can get those questions asked of you. I should try that. Now,
yeah.
Looking back at your younger self, what would you say to yourself when it comes to AI, if you could go back in time?
Yeah. I think I don't really have that much to give myself, actually, because I was really early adopter of AI. And it's not to put myself on a high horse, it was sort of accidental. I ran into it and tried it out. So I don't have any regrets. Maybe learning some sort of the tech part of it. Because when I started in the digital business, even though I'm a designer, I learned basic coding just to understand sort of the basics of the possibilities and the hindrances, of course. And maybe I should have done that 2 years ago. Learn Python.
Yeah,
to understand.
Yeah, I think Python is one of those tools, and now they're implementing Python in Excel as well. So
yeah.
and then of course you can do automation. Now, are there any emerging AI technologies and trends that you will be even future game changers for creating prototypes and rapid prototyping?
You said game. It's I mean, if I'm gonna, look into the future, I would say generating games and 3D worlds is gonna be, I think, the next thing. And we're not far away from that, to be honest. There are some early stage tools that looks promising. And I think if you look at, for example, Apple's Vision Pro headset and Metas and everyone, so I think we need to be able to generate worlds in a sort of a different matter. You can't have an army of 3D artists doing those type of work. They should do what they do best, the sort of detailed work and stuff like that. So I think digital game generating AIs is not far away, and that's going to be a game changer, I would say.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of money in games, so
yeah,
and if you're a startup and a founder, how do you supposed to gather all this information and sort of be able to also build a startup? What would you recommend to them?
I mean, again, I do sound a little bit traditional in this sense, but I don't have any really good podcasts, to be honest, around this. I get when it comes to AI and trends in general, I have more or less two sort of platforms, and that's Medium. You create a really good Medium profile, so you get the correct sort of feed for you. It takes a little bit trial and error, but it ends up really, really good. So I always end up before I go to bed, I read a couple of articles, which is, presented in my feed. And then YouTube is still really, really good. It gets a little bit bogged down. There's a lot of people saying the same things, and on the other hand, you will not miss it. So, and it's the same thing there. You have to sort of create your own personal saved playlist of people you like. I can send out a couple of interesting ones that I follow.
Yeah, so we'll include that in the follow-up email, so you can also and as you said, it's when you talked about Medium, it's not you are not writing the text on Medium. You are just asking Medium to filter for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a paying member. One of the best purchases I made this year. I was really late on that, but it's really, really good.
Yeah, and if you're in the audience, try out Medium. It's also, if you're a startup and you want to promote yourself, definitely use Medium that as well. And then you have two sides of the same. Now, so we talked about how you stay relevant. Any last words to the audience you like to say before wrapping up?
Yeah, so I would say embrace it. Since I work with startups more or less all the day long, I'm a little bit surprised sometimes that they're really, courageous going out there, starting your own business. It takes so much courage. But at the same time, they're really sort of afraid of using new technologies. I would say embrace it because it can really help you. But at the same time, it's not just gold. You have to see the backside of every tool you use. And going back actually to what I said about introducing this to traditional companies, one thing I did forget, but it's really important, besides inspire the employees to use it, and from a management perspective say that we embrace it, you should also point out that you should never put in anything that is secret, because everything you input, especially ChatGPT, well, it gets out there. So you have to treat it as a friend and a mentor you can talk about in a cafe setting. What you should tell them there, well, you can use it in ChatGPT. Well, company secret, no, you should.
That's a good point. I mean, if you sit in an open cafe, somebody else can hear you. And of course, what is interesting is there's Copilot, etc. that Microsoft is coming with, which is only supposed to use your internal information. So that will be Christian. Big thank you for being a guest of Startup Grind. Been great having you. And what we're going to do now is that I'm going to look and see.